Welcome to Nova Scribes. This is a free and open forum for visual practitioners to share their knowledge. And I ran a workshop recently. Starling said, "Starling, would you mind giving a Nova Scribes workshop?" And he said, "Yes." Starling is a human-centric engineer, and I think you're going to all walk away with something learning from him as he talks about basically how can we apply better listening skills and tools. And I want Starling in his thunder. So Starling, with that, right over to you, my friend.
Yes, all right. Hello, and happy Tuesday, everyone. Starling Jaquan here, human-centered engineer. I like to call myself also a professional listener. And a fun fact is I'm also a yoga instructor. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly for everyone. And I know that we got like a quick energy levels of everyone in the room. And then let me go ahead, swap this into presenter view. All right, can I get just a quick confirmation that you all can see my presentation here? All right, I see a bunch of thumbs up. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So you're not listening and what it's costing you. Okay, so first off, when we think about like listening, right, I like to think of listening as bunny ears, right? Soft, right? Open, and also just staying alert for the next things that come up, for the new notices within the change of our environment, right? Listening like bunny ears. So our first activity that we are going to get into, if you can do me a favor, just grab a pen and a paper, right? Maybe that's, a Post-it note, maybe that's a writing pad, just pen and paper, something that you can write on, something that you can write on. All right. Okay, and then when you get that pen and paper, just hold it up to the screen, just confirmation that we can see. Okay, I think we're all good. I see a bunch of thumbs up. All right. So we're about to do our first drawing exercise. If you are not an artist, I like to say we all are. We can draw circles, lines, and squares. So I'm gonna give some instructions and then everybody can follow along. So first off, just draw me an oval. Draw an oval. And then draw a semicircle, right? Half a semicircle. You can show our drawings all at the end. Okay, hold on. We'll show them all at the end. Draw a semicircle. Now draw two small circles. Two small circles. Inside of those two small circles, put two dots. Now draw two medium-sized circles. Draw a U. Draw two upside down U's. Draw a really big oval. Really big oval. And then draw four medium-sized, draw four, not medium, mini-sized U's. Four mini-sized U's. All right, then draw a line. All right, so we're all done. Don't hold it up, not just yet, not just yet. Let's go ahead. So, how close is the drawing to what you drew? And we can all like hold up, right? Hold up what you drew on the post. Hold up. Let's see. All right. I see a lot of different. We're aiming for a hippo. I'm a little bit scared with all the different hippos. That's perfectly okay. Awesome. All right, you can go ahead and put your drawings down. Thank you all. So all of you just drew what listening looks like in real time. I gave everyone the exact same instructions, minus the fact that it was a hippo. Um, and you all drew exactly different things, right? So I like to think of listening. Listening in some ways is like decoding a dream that someone else has. We add our own interpretations of what someone else is saying. The same way that with the drawing, right, with this activity, you all heard the same instructions and drew astronomically different things. So my question to the group, when was the last time you felt truly heard? You can just type it into the chat, right? And I'm looking for a specific date here. Maybe it was this morning, last week, uh, April 2nd, 2022, but when was the last time you felt truly heard? Just type into the chat for me. Oh, I see there like some specific, yeah, type into the chat, type into the chat. Last time you felt truly heard. All right. Kathy, I see you said Friday. Tell us a little bit more about what made that conversation so great.
It was a breakfast meeting downtown with a facilitator friend and very engaged. I leaned into her, she leaned into me. She kind of paraphrased what she was hearing back for clarification and allowed space for my part of the conversation to happen, and I allowed space for her part. So it's a
Right.
good exchange of ideas.
I appreciate that share. I'm hearing exchange of ideas, paraphrasing, and active listening. Lil, you had typed in this morning. Tell us a little bit more about what made that conversation so great.
I spent the morning with 85 preschoolers, and I think they listen better, no offense, than all the professionals I know. They are so on it, whatever you say. We were talking about numbers, and one said, OMG, how many numbers do you know? And I felt really heard.
You felt heard, and they, like you said, they were really on it. So based off of the two shared, and a lot of people specifically, I much applause. Like a lot of people had very specific dates that were all entered, right? As you reflect on what made that conversation so great, some common themes as I felt listened, heard to, the person paraphrased, the person reflected back, right? So all good things that made the conversation even better. So in the chat, we're still using the chat here. Just type in some things. Name out the things that make listening difficult. And you're not restricted to one. Just type into the chat for you. The things that make this listening difficult. All right, I see field of experience. When I don't feel heard, not feeling well. Distractions. Tim, say a little bit more about those distractions.
Distractions, there's so many. But the number one, I think, is our own thoughts, right? Thinking about what we're going to say. And that takes us away from being present, being a better listener. Of course, technology is a big amplifier of many things that are also distracting, right? Needing to do this, do that, check that. Your phone is a barrier to listening, certainly. Yeah.
Right, phone,
Environment.
listening,
Yeah.
environment, all really good things. Appreciate you sharing on that. Martha, you said a channel selection. Say a little bit more about that.
So this would be like the medium in which you're communicating. So if you're communicating over email or on a like a virtual call or just audio or a letter, like a letter in the mail. So communication come in all forms. So based on access to different types of nonverbal information or the level of synchronization in the communication, it can impact listening.
Right, communication, right, technology, the communication medium, all really important things. And Brian, I appreciate you sharing that, Martha. And then Brian, I know you put lack of knowledge about the topic. Say a little bit more about that.
Like last week, I was in Chicago for this conference with all of these cancer doctors who are trying to cure blood cancer and asked me what I know about that. So they were going into like levels of technical detail that I was hanging on by my fingernails.
All right, technical detail, right? And the piece of wanting to chime in on the conversation, the territory is new. All of these important things you talked about, noise, like communication mediums, paying attention to the things you want to say, or lack of knowledge on the specific topic. All those things can absolutely make listening difficult. And a really big part, as you think about listening, right? Listening to hear, not always listening to respond. Listening, a big part of it, it requires that intentionality, that focus. We talked about noise, the to-do list that we create, or we have that idea and we say, oh my God, I want to hold on to this. So we lose the last 5 minutes of what someone's saying, right? When having a conversation. I like to really point out that in every single conversation we have, people are giving us clues about themselves. And we'll dive a little bit more into a piece like these clues, right? But sometimes having the conversation and saying, oh my gosh, I just learned something new, or I learned what someone values, right? Both of those pieces adding in together. Another part about listening is listening to understand. And sometimes, right, people don't always want advice. Sometimes they just want understanding, right? People, in terms of listening, people coming in, listening as a sounding board. And we mentioned earlier being able to pare it back, reflect, and really understand where someone's coming from. And as I'm going along too, by the way, if there's any questions, feel free to stop me. A couple more ways to go, but nonetheless, any questions, just come off mute. Can't see the chat too easily here. Another really big part about listening is that listening to understand, right? Oftentimes when we're having a conversation, being told to feel how to feel or what to do, it can easily put us on guard. You should, you need to, you have to do. Just a quick show of hands. Has anyone ever had a conversation with someone just to tell them about a situation and they immediately go into creating a bunch of solutions? I'm gonna imagine there's a bunch of hand raises, right? That's a part of like the listening, and sometimes not always feeling understood, not always feeling heard. And sometimes in conversations, when people talk to each other, it's almost like we're talking, trying to win, not always trying to connect, right? That piece about waiting our turn. Are you listening? Are you waiting your turn to respond? So, talked a little bit overview about listening, talking a little bit about the what. So I'll go into some tips, and then we're also just gonna go into some techniques. We're also gonna go into breakout rooms for you all to just practice the techniques with one another. So talking about tips for active listening, right? Tip number one, first, checking your resistance instead of pushing through. Something that's nice to ask when you have a hard time listening is, what is making this hard for me to hear internally, right? Is the speaker exaggerating? Is it that they're defensive? Is there a lot of things on the to-do list for you to do? Are you holding on to something you want to say, right, and don't want to lose it? But what's making it hard to hear? Acknowledging that, and then shifting back to the conversation. And we all have our reasons that sometimes make listening hard to do, right? Maybe we're trying to multitask. We have a lot of things on the plate. Nothing wrong with that. Just acknowledging and then being able to shift back to the conversation to lend our opening ear. Tip number two, kind of echoing on this, listening to understand and not to respond. And so the next time you're having a conversation with someone, right, and you're opening up your ears, something that might be helpful to ask is, am I truly listening, or am I waiting my turn to talk? And in a lot of conversations, sometimes people are really waiting their turn to talk, right? That we forget about the other piece. And you may say, oh, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to lose this piece in a conversation. I really want to say it. And sometimes it's like to let it go and to listen to the end of a conversation and give a couple seconds, right? For those pieces to come together, taking a time to pause and to reflect before responding. Another thing, using silence as a tool and not a threat. Sometimes, right, a second in silence can feel like 10. But the thing about the time between listening and waiting to that response, right, is sometimes it takes time to really think through what we're going to say. Just taking that moment, you can pause and not always rushing to fill every pause, right, that comes in. And a tip that I technically use is sometimes just counting to 7 or 10, and then just waiting before going on through. All right, let's keep on going on. All right, so when having a conversation, something I also want to leave you all with, something I want to continue leaving you all with, is taking why out of your vocabulary, particularly because why can initially make us defensive when hearing it. Why choose that outfit? Why did you choose that food? Why did you make that decision that you did? Right? That why, it immediately can put the person that's talking on our defense. And we're going to go into some techniques that you may be able to add in instead of just putting in that why. Right? So something that you may be able to do, instead of asking why, right? Tell me more, say more. Easy, three easy words. Oh my God, Starling, I just crashed your car, and I would love to say like why and probably like scream, right? But like first I'll say like, tell me more. Two good things happen there. One, it gives time to sit and to process. Two, tell me more allows the speaker to take the conversation in the direction and the flow that they want for it to go. And a big part that we're going to dive into about listening is the aspect of leaning more towards receiving stories versus simply yes or no conversation. So when we're thinking about conversations, sometimes it's important to think about moving more towards a support response instead of always maybe like a shift response. And we're going to dive in a support response, all right, a shift response. What's the difference between the two? And we're going to go right into that. So a shift response, as it sounds, you're shifting. You're moving the conversation from the speaker to the listener. And a support response keeps the focus on the speaker. So you may say like, Starling, like, what exactly like does that look like, right? So for example, in a shift response, someone will say, hey, like, I'm having my rough day. My mom and I got in an argument. And person B goes, like, my mom and I argue all the time, right? We just shifted that response from the speaker to the listener, right? And a support response is, hey, I'm having a rough day. My mom and I just got into an argument. And support response is, how do you feel? We're supporting the speaker, right? And what they're saying. Something that's also helpful is say like, okay, for example, we want to also include our story. You can include a shift and a support response, right? I'm having a rough day. My mom and I got in an argument. Me and my mom get in arguments all the time. How do you feel? You end it with a support response, right? You're acknowledging, hey, I have some past experience with this, and you're supporting the speaker to keep telling their story and to support them. All right, so a quick question for the group. Can you just tell me like the quick difference, right? What was the highlight of your day versus tell me the highlight of your day? And feel free, you can type in the chat or you can come off mute. What was the highlight of your day versus tell me the highlight of your day? Tell me the difference.
One's an invitation and one is a direction.
Say a little bit more about invitation versus direction.
Oh, what was the highlight of the day? Express interest, and I'm inviting you to share with me. Whereas tell me the highlight of your day is almost like a demand.
Right, that's another piece. Yes, it is almost like a demand. Anything else anyone catches between these two phrases? Right, so on that, so
yeah, one, I mean, so yeah, tell me is open-ended. What is like is kind of predisposed onto one thing, right? Tell me the highlight. You're inviting people to explore and experiment in their own way and in their own context.
Exactly, yeah. Allowing for someone and that opportunity to explore the what. It could be like, oh, what was the highlight? Wait, tell me, right? It invites a lot more curiosity, and yes, it is that on that demand piece, right? The interesting part, because I once had someone say, "Tell me," it sounds a little bit demanding, and I say, I think it also depends, right? Tone, right? There's a difference between like, oh, tell me the highlight of your day. It's like, oh, yes, tell me the highlight of your day, right? Adding in that conversation has that tone, right? Still the important piece being here, inviting in invitations, because when someone is talking to us, sometimes having them to walk us through the story, we can use different invitational pieces, right? And tell me or say more, right, is one of those invitational pieces we can use. And there's a couple more we're going to go through. And I'll also add in here. So diving a little bit more into tools for active listening, we're going to go through 4, and then we're going to go more into breakout room. Right. So first off, mirroring. I think a lot of people may already have experience with mirroring. Normally, mirroring is repeating last 2 to 4 words someone says in a sentence. All right. So anyone, tell me your favorite food to eat, your favorite cuisine, and why. And anyone can come off mute here. Your favorite cuisine and why.
Blue chips and salsa.
Blue chips, right? So the mirroring, the interesting thing about mirroring is that it's the opportunity. You can frame it as a question, right? Blue chips, right? Or like an exclamation, blue chips, right? And we speak in both ways, having a conversation. The thing I really want to highlight as we go through these tools, right, is that sometimes, and I'll raise my hand here, I've had conversations, and many people may have had conversations that sometimes feel like an interrogation, right? And the idea behind these tools is to shift less from that interrogative feeling and more towards the storytelling piece. All right, tool number 2. So labeling, we're assigning a descriptor to what someone says. It looks like, it sounds like, it seems like, I'm guessing. Anyone, tell me your favorite season and why.
I'll jump in and do it, Starling. This is Guy. Sorry, guys, I am driving, so I can't have my camera on while I'm doing that. But I will say that my favorite season is fall, because it is the perfect transition between the hot summer and the cold winter. The weather is great. I get to play as much golf as I want to without burning or freezing. It's just it's like a gift from God. I love the fall season.
It sounds like you like cool weather, right? And appreciate you for coming off mute, Guy. Yeah, it's a labeling. It looks like, it sounds like, it seems like, right? I'm guessing, right?
There you go.
Mirroring labeling. Thank you. All right. So fill in the blank response. Normally while talking, right, if we trail off in a sentence, someone else would typically fill in that response here. So while talking, you allow the respondent to fill in your sentence. So anyone, tell me something that you're currently working on. And this will probably be like a two-way conversation just for this example, but tell me something you're currently working on. Work, personal, life, anything. Anyone.
I'm working on reorganizing our visual facilitation 2-day in-person workshop, and how to reorganize that in the context of, growing trends of virtual facilitation and AI, and so many other things, technology.
Appreciate that, Tim. And successfully reorganizing looks like?
Making it something that meets people's needs, that energizes, their ideas and their creativity in a way that is meaningful to their clients, to the work they're doing, the people they serve.
Appreciate that share. And the biggest challenge you anticipate with this reorganization is?
Getting it off the ground.
Appreciate that. Getting off the ground. So, and thank you for coming off. Thank you for coming off mute, Tim. So that fill in the blank response, right? You trail off, right, and we allow for someone else to for people, we normally would naturally fill in the end of a sentence. When using this technique, I typically say you maybe got to be comfortable 2 to 4 seconds of silence, right? As you naturally fill in a blank response, naturally filling in. And then tool number 4, so I call in these curiosity frames. So using open invitation, we're encouraging storytelling and reflection, right? the big part here is we're not using what, how, why, when, where, right? And sometimes those are useful, right? Curiosity frame. Tell me about, share with me, describe for me. I'm curious about, or I wonder if, right? And the thing is that when using these, we're opening invitation into the dialogue that we're having, right? And we're shifting more towards conversation and more towards stories as opposed to that interrogation piece. All right, before we move on, any quick questions about any of the tools?
Casey has a question.
Casey, yeah.
Hey, Starling, would you mind going back to go back like 3 slides or so, or 4 slides or something you
3.
said about the one that had the 2 questions on opposite sides?
Yeah.
Tell me the highlight of your day. You said something that was really powerful when you said it's all about the invitation. It's almost like because sometimes when someone asks me a question, I'm an analyst by trade. I have to think on it. I want to think about it. But when someone says, when you first did this to me, and I've been using it a lot recently, hey, tell me about the highlight of your day. I can just jump right into it. It's an easier, I found it an easier transition for myself when you do that with me than when someone asks me a question.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, that transition piece and that allowing for that reflection, right? And sometimes the best part about listening is keeping in that open ear. And sometimes we don't realize things till we vocalize them. Like, oh, like the highlight of my day was this. Right, yeah, appreciate that, Casey. All right, so let's go ahead. The next phase we should be getting into, okay, yeah, for our group activity, diving more into the breakout rooms. So I'm gonna go over the instructions in just a little bit about everything that we're doing. But let me go ahead and put for everyone to see into the chat. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna break it into groups, 3 or 4 people, kind of dependent, 3 or 3 plus for what we're doing. There are gonna be 3 roles. We're gonna have a listener and you can only respond in mirrors, labels, fill in the blanks, and curiosity frame. You cannot use what, how, where, or when, right? And there's no shifting the conversation back to yourself. The talker, you're gonna respond to the question. If you were stuck in a loop doing one thing over and over, what would it be? Over and over, what would it be? Right? And the tallier, you're just gonna count, right? You're gonna count for the listener, the number of mirrors, labels, fill in the blanks, and curiosity frames. You have 4 tools, 4 different tools. You can switch, swap, go in between. We'll take about maybe 4 minutes per role, and then we're just gonna go ahead and switch. So I placed this into the chat. Casey, if you can start opening with the breakout rooms. Let's say if we're at the 6:30 mark and we're using 4 people in a group, but let's say about 11 minutes per group.
Let me jump in here. And Brian, I might need a little help here because Zoom is not my friend. Hey, when we go to breakout rooms, will we lose these instructions on the screen?
Yes, but I'll take care of that.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So breakout rooms of 4, what do you think, 5 minutes or so is what you're thinking there? And Brian, I'll make you a co-host real quick. So it helps. Make co-host.
Yeah,
yes.
breakout rooms of 4. Let's do about, because we have a good amount of time. And
So
yes.
I have a question. Can you clarify if you were stuck in a loop doing one thing over and over again, is the intent there that it's something that you like to do that you would do over and over again? Or what's the thing that trips you up and you get stuck doing over and over again that you don't really like? Or is that open to interpretation?
Open to interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Breakout rooms, let's say we're at the 6:30 mark, 10 minutes each. And I think someone else was coming off mute to ask another question.
I just dropped the instructions in chat, so those should follow you into your breakouts.
Wonderful. So we're putting 10 minutes on the clock, right? 4 people in a room. If you find yourself in a room that's for some reason other people have either checked out or gone off, jump back in the main room. We'll assign you another group. So create the breakout rooms. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Is that right? Starling, 10 minutes?
Yeah, that is right. And remember, we're going to be switching about every 3 to 4 minutes, just making sure everyone gets a chance to take each role.
Oh, good. Wonderful. Who has a question about what we're going to do before we jump in? Before we throw you in the room, any thoughts or questions before we launch you into the workout in the breakout rooms? Awesome. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Great. Wait, how many people we got here? We got 17, create 5 breakout groups. Done. Actually go to 4. Yep, 4 breakout groups. See you guys soon. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Rooms are open. And Starling, if you join a room, and I'll join a room as well.
All right. Hello, 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 everyone. And we are on back. We are on back. Awesome. All right. And everyone should be back on. And can I get it like a thumbs up? Oh, am I frozen? I'm frozen. Oh, wait, I'm not frozen anymore. Awesome. Can I get a thumbs up about that? Give thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs left, thumbs high. So in our quick reflection, and again, you can open up the chat here. So as the listener, right? So as the listener, the person who was responsible for the curiosity frames, the labels, the mirrors, labels, right? The fill in the blanks. On a scale of 1 to 5, how natural does that feel? So 5 is like extremely natural. It was awesome. It was fine. Then 1, it was like it wasn't really natural at all, right? 1 to 5. 5, again, as the listener, how natural did it feel? 5, very natural. 1, not natural at all. Just type into the chat. Type into the chat as the listener. Let's see. I see 2, 4, 4. Oh, as a little, okay, a lot of people say like as a 4. Okay. All right. Abby, you said 3.5. Tell us some more about that 3.5, Abby.
In my previous life and as a facilitator, I was a human-centered design researcher. So I would facilitate interviews and moderate interviews with people all over the country. So I have my go-to sentence stems and question starters. And so I think I gave it a 3.5 because these challenged me to go back and look at other sentence starters and question stems. So that's why it was a 3.5.
Appreciate that share. Thank you. And then Chidima, I see you said 4. Tell us a little bit more about that 4.
I said 4 because I think it made me kind of think outside of what I would normally ask because, I mean, based on this, I wasn't actually a great listener before. So I feel like these are great sentence starters and these bring out better like answers.
Yes, better answers, right? More stories. And then
Hey,
guys, this is
Starling,
it.
can I
Yes.
build in on that? I was the observer for Shadima's for her session. And first of all, I totally embarrassed myself. I didn't realize it wasn't just me and Brian chopping it up because I've known him for a long time. And then I swiped to the left, like, oh my God, there's other people in the room. So I hogged a lot of the time. So we got cut off. So Shadima, just for your feedback, you did a fantastic job. There were no who's, no what's, no how's. And the thing that really stood out to me, which is why I gave it a 5, is because when it was John, right? When he talked about flying, the one thing that he would do over and over again, and he's talking about flying, you noticed the helicopters in his background and you said, tell me about those helicopters that you have like behind you. And his energy went up because my guy just loves to talk about helicopters. And you took that and you were able to just keep pulling at that thread, recognizing that it was something that he was interested in talking about. You showed that you were interested in hearing about, but you didn't show up with like a preconceived agenda where you're like, okay, I asked that question, what's next? And it has nothing to do, like you actually noticed what was happening around him and use that to build on. And then your questions about, I'm curious about this, and could you describe for me what it was like for blah blah, like those kinds of questions that you asked that directly pertain to what he was talking about was fantastic. So as someone who thinks that she doesn't, at least in the past, wasn't a great listener, it showed that not only are you a good listener, but you're a really good observer too, because I didn't even notice the helicopters in the background until you pointed it out. That's it.
Awesome. Appreciate that, guy. And yes, Shadima, sounds like you did a fantastic job. The big part that I'm hearing a lot, right, is shifting the way in which we might ask questions and getting to the stories. I'm guessing here that everyone found out something valuable, or at least the things that another person finds valuable, right? And sometimes it's how we ask the question and the things that we're adding into it. Right. So like maybe like next time you have a conversation or something, I try to do it myself. Like try not to, and if you have the time, sometimes I can't ask my little brother, hey, do you want, tell me everything you would like for dinner? Because then we're going to be eating, I don't know, chicken tenders and ice cream, right, for dinner. But nonetheless, sometimes, right, seeing how you might get a story by removing like what, why, how, when, or where, or tell me. I'm curious about, I wonder, say more. And so I believe I can send this, we'll send this presentation out, the PDF version of this. You can also probably use your phone if you want to take like a quick screenshot, grab this. Other open phrases for open communication. Tell me more, say more, I'm listening. Walk me through, expand for me. I'm interested in, flip the perspective, right? Just open-ended conversation prompts, because sometimes conversation is that piece where we're holding people's hands and helping people guide on through everything. And I think someone maybe came off mute for a second. Wanted to voice. All right. All right.
Starling, it was me. It was Casey. You said something a while back that kind of made me rethink my job as a facilitator. And you said, how can you facilitate without asking any questions? Would you mind pulling that thread where that thought came from you a while back? You said, I'm trying not to ask any questions. And I'm really curious if you don't mind pulling that thread.
Yeah, the piece about question asking, right? A lot of times with asking questions, one is that on that interrogative piece. And two, sometimes if we invite curiosity to the conversation, we can learn and take things from it, especially in a facilitator as group. Not like, oh, what would you like? How would you like? What would you like? What were you thinking? How would you do, right? You go to someone and you say, I have 10 questions for you. That's maybe exhausting. And maybe, or that feels like an interrogation. I'm telling you, like the next time you have a conversation, try shifting more. I'm curious about, tell me more, say more, walk me through. Just see how the conversation evolves. And in there, right, you may notice some differences in being. So when I ask questions, if it's possible, I try not to use what, why, how, when, or where. Again, sometimes I do need a yes or no, but sometimes not always. And it leads to lots of great open-ended responses. So
Starling, is that, sorry, one more time.
Yes.
Is that almost saying we often think of what, when, where, why, how, when it comes to questions. It's almost like you can ask a question by, tell me more. Or it's all but the inflection of your voice that you ask that question in that state. Okay.
Yeah, all those things add. And if you do want to put the what, well, tell me what the highlight of your day was. You're not starting with the what, right? You're just having in there, right? That's another way. Can you say more about how that happened, right? It still works, similar way. So when you all have another conversation, we focus so much on communicate, 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 communicate. For myself, right, and something I like to leave you all with is at the end of a conversation, instead of what did I say, what did I learn? This is the needle point in which I measure my conversations personally. If I walk away from a conversation from someone, this is for myself personally, I did not learn anything, to me, that was not a good conversation, personally. Instead of what did I say, what did I learn, right? And so let's say like you're like, okay, I'm really big in these conversation, these communication pieces. I want to learn, read a little, well, actually we have questions before we go into some readings. Any questions, last minute thoughts, things top of mind before we move on? Oh, fantastic. All right, so let's say like, okay, I want to have better conversations. I want to engage, want to talk, right? Want to navigate. Here's like a couple readings that I can for sure recommend. You're Not Listening. Kate Murphy talks a lot about listening, right, in general societal context. Talk, Alison Wood Brooks, The Science of Conversation, fantastic book. Laws of Connection talks about strong social networks and social connection. Nonetheless, there's some really good pointers about listening and communication. And then I actually read this morning about strategic curiosity. Sometimes the most influential person in the room isn't the one who talks the most. It's the one who asks the right question. Right. All right. And I believe that's like the end of my presentation. Oh, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that is the end of my presentation. Nonetheless, Starling Jaquan, I'm always happy, right? Have a conversation, chat with you all. You all can equally find me if you ever want to shoot me a message. I know my stuff will be out there. You can also shoot me a message on my website if that's of interest. I think I put the right JaquanStarling.com. Nonetheless, thank you all for coming out and have a fantastic Tuesday.
And Starling, this is where we often transition to what we call after hours, right? So Starling, welcome to stay around. Super appreciate you being here. We're going to stop the recording. If I can figure out how to stop the recording in an AI recording. I just told it to start. I don't know how to do that because I'm just using, I don't tend to use Zoom. So that's my fault right there. Hey, so everyone, this is Starling. Everyone, do me a favor in chat. If you don't mind in chat, on a scale from, I don't know, 1 to 10, 1 being, oh my God, I don't know what it took away from, with 10 being, I took away something I find valuable from the session. Would you mind just giving me a summary in chat real quick where you are on a scale from 1 to 10 that may, where this stood for you? Oh, awesome. So we're now transitioning to, 10, 9, 10, 9. Oh, fabulous. Starling, you're wonderful. I super appreciate you being here. And with this, we're transitioning to after hours. Everyone's will stay on. Starling, how much time can you give us just for conversation from the group or just ideas or thoughts?
Of course. I'm more than happy to stay on. I talked a lot about the what, not a lot about the why. So yeah, happy to stay on.
Yeah, so we're in after hours right now, 5-10 minutes. Feel free to stick around, ask any questions, share any thoughts. Starling, the time is yours, and we're just here. I'm just on the back end moderating right now.
Oh, fantastic. So I guess something that I didn't get to put in my presentation, something that also might come up is the conversation of interrupting, right? And I always like to say, and I personally, from what I've learned in a lot of the reading, it's okay to interrupt depending on the context, right? And the context and the situation, right? Right. So there's one, if you're interrupting, staying on topic, right? Versus shifting and switching the topic. When having conversations, sometimes it really matters. It's important, not just, you just don't get, yeah, 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 okay. Right. Sometimes it's like, oh, like using that label with mirrors, right? In that conversational piece. Anything else top of mind? I can practice the conversation. Oh, recording button is gone. I think the recording is back up. Anything else top of mind? I mean, I'm more than happy to go over some other random things. Something else I learned recently in talk, Science of Conversation, Alison Wood Brooks, is about coming prepared to a conversation with topic pointers. Before I have a conversation, I write down maybe 4 things I want to talk about. Because we think conversation is natural, it's not. It takes a lot of work and effort, right? Just 4 questions. And I tend to ask the crazy, wacky questions. Like, if your work personality was an animal, what kind of animal would it be? And yeah, that also equally helps. I have a bunch of other if your day was a color, what color would it be? What's some other stuff? Would you rather have sharp hands or snakes for hair? Different things. The theme song before your day. The theme song before my day. I take that question as from theme song before my day. Oh gosh, I'm not good with song. There's a song called.
If your day had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, it's the song called. That's a good one. Yes, that is a good question. What would it? I'm gonna write that one down. I like that one. What would the theme song for your debut? If I had to think about that. Yeah, important to come prepared in the conversation. And then we're still after hours. So for anyone come off mute, chime on in.
Starling, I have a question for the group overall. For those that were in the state of being not listening, but who was doing the talking, who's in the loop, constantly going around, you kind of knew what the questions were coming your way, or at least what was being served up to you. How natural did that still feel when someone asks you, it looks like, it sounds like, or hey, tell me more about, or hey, this sounds like? How natural did that feel for the people who are actually in that role of actually being the talker? Would someone mind sharing how natural that felt, even though you knew what was coming your way?
I'll share. The fact that I knew it was coming my way, I think I kind of stunted the exercise because I was sitting there answering the questions when I was the talker instead of letting the person ask them to me. So if I hadn't seen the questions, I might not have talked as much. But my colleagues did a wonderful job of using them. So, and they had fascinating stories, so that was fun.
I was going to say, I knew what direction the questions could go, but I didn't know what the questioner was going to specifically ask. So the conversation could have gone a number of different directions. And, you know, at one point I thought it was going to go down the road of a particular character. We were talking about a show, and instead it was, well, tell me about the coaching angle. So the conversation went a completely different direction because the word coaching had come up. So kind of interesting.
And hey, Brian had to leave. And one of the things that come through in chat, you know, we put these things on for free. If you want to buy us a cup of coffee, there's kind of a PayPal link down if you want to buy a cup of coffee. It's almost a pay as you go. You don't have to pay, but if you want to buy us a cup of coffee sometime, throw some change in there. And we'd love to have your time with us. Starling, I can't tell you how much I appreciated having you on board with this, going through the group. I'll stay around for another 5 minutes or so. Anybody want to stay around, have a conversation with Starling, welcome to. We'll wrap up the slides. We'll get those out to the group that joined today. And yeah, thank you everyone for your time. Appreciate being here. Starling, once again, amazing. And John made it as well. Oh, the hell awesome. So glad John made it. And thank you. Thank you everyone for your time. And Starling, I'll stick around for a couple minutes if you want to chat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Starling, thanks, Christina.
Thanks so much.
Nancy, great seeing you as well.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks everybody.
Guy,
Appreciate
pleasure
it.
meeting you. Pleasure meeting you.
All right.
Same.
Yeah.
See you again soon.
And Tim, love the visuals behind you. Starling.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Listen and draw is my best tip for listening, right?
Yes.
I like it.
Conversation. I'll share this with Brian, and he can share with you.
Oh, appreciate it, Tim.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of you do that.
Nice to meet you all. Cheers.
Cheers.